Spectators in town to take in the Paralympics. Stephen Barber is one of them. He's armed with a movie camera. In fact, he has it here in the studio with us right now. I'm a little nervous here in front of the camera. Stephen is making a film about the 2010 Paralympics. His documentary, Unbeaten, is about the world's longest wheelchair race. It showed at this year's Sundance Film Festival, and Stephen joins me in the studio. Welcome.
Thank you very much. Great to be here.
Now, just as you came into the studio, you have a little bit of a connection with Avatar. What's that?
Well, I was at the premiere of Avatar, James Cameron's phenomenal film. I was really fortunate to get on the carpet. I got the chance to befriend Sam Worthington, who plays the wheelchair athlete. It's just, I'd like to say it was coincidental,
right?
But this movie's been kind of divinely inspired since the get about 3.5 years ago. I just tried to help a guy in a wheelchair, and it's grown organically, and we've actually just qualified for Oscar 2011, which doesn't mean we're going to get nominated or win. But we went through the steps.
And that's because of your movie Unbeaten.
Absolutely.
So tell us about that movie. Tell us about the premise of it, for those that haven't seen it.
Literally, 3.5 years ago, long story short, tried to help a guy in a wheelchair. He needed some money to do this crazy race. So with producer Tamara Henry and the Polaris Media Group, we went up there, we shot this amazing film, 55 miles a day in wheelchairs between Anchorage and Fairbanks.
This is the race.
Couldn't believe it. I'm like, I had never been part, and I'm as complacent in my goal up here in Vancouver is to, there's no Americans up here, filming this, covering it all. It's absurd. Yeah. I'm like one of the few Americans, So
how did doing that movie change your life?
It changed me just walking up your stairs every day of my life. Walking up, I parked in the parking lot across the street of the library. Instead of taking the elevator, I used the stairs.
And then for those that obviously can't see you, you're completely an able-bodied person.
I am an able-bodied person, and this film has transformed my life. And I mean, I was as complacent and as ignorant as anyone else in the States, and I just didn't know about this. I mean, I tell people I'm going to the Paralympics, and they think Special Olympics. And I said, no, the two are very different.
Right.
But it's just simply the lack of education. So my goal with this movie, and people can go to the trailer, it's unbeatenthemovie.com, and I have a huge Canadian component, Dan Aykroyd.
Oh, yes.
Dan gave me money, he gave me his voice. Unbelievable guy. I mean, just...
So he was the narrator behind it?
Well, he hosts it. Yeah, he's in the opening scene. And he also gave me a great donation. So it's not a nonprofit. It started out that way, but we're giving half the money away to the Challenged Athletes Foundation, which has raised $26 million to buy men and women prosthetics throughout the year. So it's just... Like I said, if somebody had told me I was going to go for an Oscar or I was going to make this movie, I would have never. It's grown organically.
So coming out of that movie, what brought you to the Paralympic Games here in Vancouver?
I'd love to tell you I'm the lonely voice of the Americans trying to get this movie out, because I feel that the Paralympics movement is just not... I mean, I was up here 4 weeks ago. I pitched Matt Lauer from Today Show and Meredith Vieira and everybody, Jeff Zucker, the head of NBC. I'm like, guys, just do a 30-second spot every day with a Paralympian, if you possibly can, and there's just no interest. And since I've come up here, I've met your Rick Hansen. I'd never heard of Rick Hansen.
Okay, tell us about that. Now, Canadians, of course, know.
Of course,
he's a big, popular guy here in Canada. He's, been around the world on his wheelchair. But what was it like to meet him?
It was amazing.
What was your first meeting like?
Well, I just met him a couple days ago at the university. And I had a couple Canadians come up to me and say, because I told him I didn't know who he was. He's like, well, because you're American, we're going to let you slide. But if you're Canadian, we'd have to take you behind the building and beat you. I was like, okay. But it's absurd that I don't know who he is, especially that I'm in the disabled community here,
in a sense of covering.
Like, how can I not know who this guy is? And I think there's a couple things, because it was 2 decades ago.
Right.
Was one thing.
Yeah.
I mean, he's become an icon here. And I'm actually, because of him, I actually spoke to Sam Sullivan this morning, who once again, nobody in America knows who he is. And because of that, we're going to be working with a company called Neurokinetics, which is helping people with, brain injury and
injuries.
Right, yeah. And Mick Mathuzak, who's the person who's instrumental in giving me this interview. This thing just keeps growing. I mean, now all of a sudden, I'm hooked up with this Neurokinetics company that wants to help, Paralympians and paraplegics. And so it went from a wheelchair, giving a guy a check 3.5 years ago, to working with, a company like, Neurokinetics, and who knows where it's going to go from here. So I'm just real passionate about this, and I mean, I think you can hear that in my voice. It's like, these people are worth covering. They are actually, I was in Beijing. Those Olympics that I saw at the Paralympics in Beijing were 10 times, 1,000 times more fun. and soulful and just emotional, the emotional Olympics, than the regular Olympics. I mean, it's pretty easy to go down a hill with 2 legs and 2 arms. Try it with 1 arm and 1 leg, and blind. You know what I mean? I mean, come on.
Yeah. So what is it about this that attracts you so much as an able-bodied person? I mean, obviously there's some great personal stories there, but I'm really intrigued as to what draws that to you on a personal
You hit it
level.
on the head. I'm a storyteller, and most people in LA are out trying to find stories. There's thousands of these stories that need to be told. I just met a gal before I came into the radio station whose daughter is blind. She's on the Australian team. I'm meeting her tomorrow in Whistler. You know what? I didn't have to look for that. I'm just like, you know, she's obviously the mother of a Paralympian. I mean, the story is off the charts. So I'm a storyteller. I'm here to tell as many stories as I can. I would like people to go to unbeatenthemovie.com. They can see everything that
Well,
they
we'll
possibly
definitely
can.
look forward to seeing this story too. Thank you very much, Stephen.
Thank you, sir.
Stephen Barber is a U.S. filmmaker. He's making a documentary about the 2010 Paralympics. Thank you.